And now we are coming to the planning point. So planning, by now you know that planning is absolutely essential, you know. Again, for many projects, you might use 1 or 2 storages. For the most part of the project, probably 1 storage, okay? But in the case you have TBS project, you have security, you have fire safety, you're having building automation. Now what I would like to show you is how to use the sizing tool. The sizing tool I'm showing you now, it's only available to a few persons right now, because this is being produced last week, this stage. If you're going to the intranet site, you will find a version 3.002, and this is now 03, okay? And this will be released in the next couple of weeks. And with the official release in the intranet website, probably also distributed system might be available. Not sure yet. I don't know this information from the product management. But you see here that this has been now already enhanced with distributed systems, yes or no? Okay, so have a look. Nevertheless, certain things remains exactly the same. When you're using enable this content, otherwise it won't calculate, okay? You have to enable it. I've prepared the project, basically. Now, other options here, new options. Sorry, before I'm coming to the project, we have now added the clear functionalities. I don't want to use that one because then I'm losing all the data here. So hardware dimensioning and licensing, you can clear them here and restart from scratch instead of doing it manually. You had to do that manually before. And in the section of defining the history infrastructure, there's also a clear button. So here, this is empty. So by now, I defined a project with 7,000 PX data point, 500 detectors, 50 doors, 100 managed meters, 100 meters integrated, validate data points 150, 3 archive groups, graphics 200 pages, trends 800 trends. Scrolling to the right, I see that I'm in category B with 50% fill level. Expressed, right now this has no meaning because I didn't define any HDB data. Okay. You see here the licensing dimensioning. Okay. So data points, it gives you an overview of what is actually needed as a license. And now let's have a look how to use this part here. So maybe as an overview, we're having the history database infrastructure here, so HDB, so we can set up still HDB values, of course, because HDB can be still used. Storage 1, storage 2, storage 3, and storage 4. So right now, this tool supports 4 storages. It's the first release with the long-term storage session. Slices per storage 4, as per default. We will see that when we change that. And then here you see then the results. This is the result section. Whatever we are going to play around with the values here, we will see a results here. And also, depending how we set up LTS, this will also influence, okay, the history infrastructure size. Okay, now I will enlarge the size, and let's start. Let's start playing around now. So first, I did a copy of the value here. I defined on the top, you know, so I don't have to scroll up and down. So I'm having 7,000 building automation data points, 500 detectors, 50 doors, and so on and so on. Let's pretend to start with, I want to slightly build up the situation. Let's pretend this is a pure fire safety project or DMS project with 500 detectors and 50 doors. How many activities do you expect, do you estimate for this per day, in kilo per day, activities? 50 doors, 300 detectors. And these are user activities, system activities, and so on and so on. How many do you expect? 500 per day?
Maybe.
1 kilo, 2 kilo? You are the real engineering guys. We are just...
From the fire detection system itself, we do not expect any quite huge amount of activities because basically it is in quiet states, just in the lab. So we just can calculate about the doors. So what is activity? Access, open the door and close the door. Where we have 500 doors, it will be open 10 times a day, so 5,000 activities.
Yeah, those activities are stored in the SQL of the CPAS system. We are having only the very important activities and events in terms of those. But let's go on the safe side, basically. I'm saying, okay, I'm having 1,000 activities per day. And how many events? Alarms. Here we do have the alarms, here the activity, and here the trending. About the trending, I do have some experience from the field years ago, but still in my mind. So let's say, okay, we are having 500 alarms per day to go to the safe side, okay? So I'm adding, so it's, what do you call in English? Aufrunden. Rounded up. Okay, thank you very much. Rounded up. For trending purpose, I do have this possibility here. You know, you see that in each storage we are having the same concept. So on top is the trending, then records and so on, alarm records, activity records, and we can now forget about the M&S part here. I click on that, and then I can say, okay, I'm having HVAC. I'm having 800 trends. Do you remember? We said we are having 800 trends. So I'm saying, okay, 750 of them we will be sampled in 50 minutes rates, and the other 50 in 30. And then we have meters, and this 150 meters, also 50 minutes, okay, as an example. I apply, and you see now the differences between trending, you know, recording trends. I'm here already with 90 kilo per day compared to FS and TMS activity. You know, you might now understand, you know, the heavy load coming from trending compared to the very low or less low data volume having from the activities and events. Okay, here online retention time months. Okay, online retention time. Let's say 24 months, because by now you don't see any changes in the value here. So this starts to change when I'm really going to say, okay, I want to have those values 24 months, so 2 years online available. All of them, okay? Because we are using one HDB. You see here now the results. It tells you that for the HDB size, I'm using 4 GB. I have to use 4 GB. Project size is 8 GB, and SQL disk space all together is 53 GB. It tells you also by using Express, I could store 5 years data. Okay, 5.1 years of data, and of course, enterprise, it's 133 years. So these were the situation we had in version 2.1. There was no options. This is the only option. Now we have long-term storage. And let's have a look on the top here. So I have the history infrastructure size is 4 GB. So this is now the value you would have to set up for when you're creating HDB. You know, you're creating the HDB here. You're creating okay, doesn't scroll. You're creating the HDB here now, 4 gig, and here the transaction log file would be 8 GB. That was version 1, just to tell you that this was the situation we had with version 2.1. Now, we want to use long-term storage, okay? I'm clearing now this situation, and let's say by knowing already that I'm expecting to have 90 kilo of data per day just from coming from trends values, and only 2 or 1 kilo coming from alarms and activities, I would say we do 2 storages, okay, in this situation, in this example. So I'm using storage 1 for, let's say I'm using storage 1 for the activities and events. So I'm having alarms, let's go to 1 kilo and 3 kilo of activities, because I'm having now building automation included. Before we were looking just the purely the FSI. And let's take the 2 years data I want to do. So I'm entering now 2 years data, and I get now the result down here in the storage. It tells me that with Express I can collect 10 years of data, okay, and with standard or enterprise a bit longer, okay, 1,000 years. Per default I have 4 slices defined, okay, and now you see that the HDB size is 1 GB. 1 GB is the minimum we can anyway configure in SMC, okay, but it tells you we are not using the HDB now, the STS, we are not using HDB and STS for storages, okay. The project hasn't changed. The project disk space 8 gig, and the all over SQL disk space is 6 GB. Now we have to scroll up now. We have to scroll on the top to see what's actually the history infrastructure size saying. So the history infrastructure says I'm using 2 GB here in this case, and slices to 1 GB. So I'm using long-term storage with 4 slices, okay. If I would now go to 1 slice, in this case, what will you expect? Instead of storing the volumes, because here we estimate the volume of data which is coming from the subsystem and the activities of the system itself, and needs to be stored in the infrastructure, HDB infrastructure, okay? If I'm using one slide instead of 4, I might see a difference here in the long-term storage size. Okay, now I'm using one slice and the size of the slices has to be bigger. Okay, good. We still didn't configure the building automation part. I mean the values, the trends. I'm going back to 4. It's kind of tricky that it jumps. And now I'm using storage 2 for the HVAC. So 750, 50 minutes, 50 to 30 minutes, and meters. $150 to 50 minutes. So it's 90 kilo. Let's say I'm using also here 24, 2 years. And you see now that just looking purely to that storage, I would be able to store 6.3 years of data just by using Express. Purely this, okay? But we are collecting data together with this amount. So the volume of data, the result of the volume of data, why Express and not standard, the result of that, you see it now up here, okay? The history infrastructure size, now we have calculated 5 GB of volume by storing those amount of data 24 months, 2 years. And now we can play with the time sliced. So you can say, okay, let's keep that to 24 because that's the differences between the storages. I can say I want to have here 24 months of values available, but for the trends, I would like to have 60. So 5 years of data. Okay. And now it tells me that actually I would have to go to, it's 10 gigabyte. It's exactly 10 gigabyte. So it has jumped already to enterprise, but with this value, I would say, okay, you can still use Express. Okay, I can still use Express. So I could store now 60 months of trend objects and 24 months of activities and alarms. I could change the slices. You see here now it's 2 gigabyte. I could go to 2 slices. So you know now, by setting up the project in this way, I'm using 2 gigabyte of slices, and I'm producing here almost a double amount of values than here in this period here. Okay, if I'm reducing now the slices per storage to 2, it increases me the volume, the size per slice. I still have enterprise, it doesn't change, because I'm saying that's the amount of data I want to have online. Okay? But it gives you now a figure about the relationship between number of slices to the volume per slice. And this is dictating basically the long-term storage, because I'm having much more volume here producing than here. Okay, I could now how many slices can I have maximum per storage? Wait a minute, maybe you have to be now. Yeah, the range is 1 to 12. So I could go to 12 slices here, and you see that I'm now to 1 gigabyte down here. Okay, so I could now fill up 12 slices, or vice versa. I can go for 2 slices, and I know now that I need 4 gigabyte of sizes per slice. Okay, so the question is, what's better, having slices of 4 gigabyte and only the number of 2, or having more slices, and so on and so on. We are still in the range of Express here. Okay, we are still in the range of Express. The whole thing gives, if you're now increasing the number of HVAC records, the trending, let's go to 7,500 instead of 750. Then you see here now, we are from the point of view of history infrastructure size, we are using 64 gigabyte. So this is far beyond the 10 gigabytes of the Express. And just by having 2 slices, we're having 31 gigabyte of volume per slice. So in this case here, I would go probably rather to more slices, maybe 8, and having less volume per slice. So, questions? It would be nice now to spend an afternoon basically, by playing around. Okay, with all those. It's a question of having a feeling, and it's a question to set it up on a project. And recommendation is, if you putting the HDB, if you're having basically these 2 data and log file, or especially the data files, in the same location, you can monitor the size of this location and set up a number, so you get an event, or the customer will get an event, and then check what's going on. But on those locations, on this drive or on this storage place, only those data should be there, no other data. And then monitor them, so they get a feeling. How the sizes of those storages increases. But the tools, from my point of view, the tools gives you a feeling how to estimate. Okay, if you now are interested to go deeper in the calculation, in the online help, let's see, here, now I have to find now myself. There are sections, so you see there are much more retaining values. Wait a minute. It is mentioned in one of the slides. Yes, here. So calculate the data volume, you know. You can calculate them. I mean, calculate in terms, if I'm search values and data capacity. Capacity settings, you see here. Here you have the user storage per data groups and lines rows. So time series, activity log, alarm log. You see here what kind of volume they're creating per entry, you know, kilobytes per entry. And now you can take those values basically and make reverse calculation. You know, by having, let's say by having, by knowing the situation that the trending gives me, dictates me the volume of the data, you can now estimate basically how much values you're really producing here. You know, you're really producing with the alarm and the activity records. So you can then get a better feeling. But as I said, depending on the complexity you're having on a project, you need, I mean, this is not something you set up Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, probably. For many types of project, don't forget, for many type of project, I'm pretty much sure that one storage and with the amount of slices and so on is okay for many types of project. But if you're going into pharma projects, hospitals, or large projects, okay, distributed systems, okay, distributed systems. So if you're having a huge volume of, expecting a huge volume of records coming from a building automation project, then one solution would be to have BA set up on one server, maybe even on two, to use the capacity of the HDB and so on. Any questions so far?
Mostly, as you said, building automation project requested so huge amount of data. But
yeah, this is...
security projects are not so.
I mean, for security and fire safety, one storage and that's it.
That's it.
That's it. And probably...
For most of the project is enough the short-term storage for most of the security or fire safety projects.
With short-term storage, you might lose data. Don't forget that. If it's...
But after several months or weeks, but data or information which is older than 3 months is absolutely forgotten. So
this is strange for me because this is what fire safety and security people are telling me, you know.
yeah.
But I got this kind of virus in myself, you know, that don't lose data. I mean, kind of, you know. But if the customers, if it's, you know, if it's in accordance with the customer, then it's okay. But it doesn't cost much, you know, to set up a storage, a long-term storage, and archiving.
2 weeks, then nobody asks it. So in case of fire, it is immediately executed and searched what happened.
Yeah.
So the data is still there in that moment, or in the very next days. We are not talking about weeks or months after the fire, after the action that is going to be searched what happened. So that's just a comment.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing, you know, from But this is kind of for us building automation people, it's kind of strange,
Yes.
Any questions from the audience, from the participants, No? They're all sleeping or what?
No, two questions.
So-
If the online trends, the count will be considered in the same pattern of offline? The trends counting,
Online and offline is the same.
same.
Yes. This is another challenge, Let's say we can easily, or it is possible to estimate trending of the offline trending, because this is part of the planning
Engineering.
in the XWP and TRA projects, the Desigo room automation projects. But what you do with, you don't know what the customer is going to do with the online trendings, okay?
My question is.
But it's behaving the same.
No, my question is, when we are doing the offline trend, we know the calculation, we know the expectation, but once it's hand out to the end user, the customer will create their own trending with their own requirement. So the calculation will be different that time. So how we can manage
The only possibility
to give the training to them?
is, do you have to monitor the drive or the storage place where those files are stored. That's the only possibility. And you set up there a value which you have estimated. You go a bit on the safe side, and then the customer will get an event, might call you up, and then you have to check those storage places, and then you see, and then have a look how many online trends he has. But otherwise,
So is it best way you can create the calculation, the entire data point as a trended database to give the space accordingly, either using or not using? For example, 750 data points. 750 maybe 300 is a trended, 400 event.
I don't exactly.
If, for example, the offline trend already considered in the calculation.
Yes.
The online trend, if we have consider as a maximum points, give the space for recording purpose. Either they're selecting or not selecting, we will leave it to them. We can keep the advanced reserved space for those conditions.
Any trends are assigned to the default archive groups of values. Any, if you don't change them. If you don't change them. So there's no way to track them, basically. Okay? The only thing what you can do is really monitor the drive or the disk space, or basically the storage space, the storage place where you're storing the information. Monitor that part, and then hopefully the customer is going to call you up when he sees that event. And then you can track, or you say, okay, I'm going on the safe side, I'm calculating maybe 500 trends, online trends, and you're telling that to the customer, saying, look, the way I set up long-term storage, we calculated the one we are having offline, and we calculated 500 online trends. So, and
There will be challenge definitely.
does anybody know in this planet, what the customer is going to do with the product? It's almost impossible.